ॐ शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करभावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वति नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्ज सम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாவிவ சம்பிருக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே ஜகதः பிதரௌ வந்தே பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வரௌ. ஸ்ரீ பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வராभ्यां நமः. कोमलं पूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन्। हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि आर्तान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं। क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी ध्रुवमभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशी विभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने. കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചനാനിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ടാത്തോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കുന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Okay. Do a review of 92 today. Harini, you can do one half, and Padmaja Mekundam, you can do one half.
श्री कृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः। दशकं 92 कर्म मिश्र भक्ति स्वरूप वर्णनम्। वेदैः सर्वाणि कर्माणि अफलपरतया वर्णितानीति बुद्ध्वा तानि त्वय्यर्पितान्येव हि समुनुचरन् यानि नैष्कर्म्यमीश मा बुद्वेदैर्निषिद्धे कुहचिदपि मनः कर्म वाचां प्रवृत्तिर्दुर्वचं चेदवाप्तं तदपि खलु भवत्यर्पये चित्प्रकाशे यत् यस्त्वन्यः कर्मयोगः तव भजनमयस्तत्र चाभीष्टमूर्तिं हृद्यां सत्त्वैकरूपां दृशति हृदि क्वापि वा भावयित्वा पुष्पैर्गन्धैर्निवेद्यैरपि च विरचितैः शक्तितो भक्तिपूतैः नित्यं वर्यां सपर्यां विदधदयि विभो त्वत्प्रसादं भजेयम् स्त्रीशूद्रास्त्वत्कथादिश्रवणविरहिताः आसतां ते दयार्याः त्वत्पादासन्नयातान् द्विजकुलजनुषो हन्तच्छोचाम्यशान्तान् त्वय्यर्तं ते यजन्तो बहुकथितमपि त्वामनाकर्णयन्तो धृता विद्याभिजात्यैः किमु न विदधते तादृशं मा कृता माम्.
Harini, there are two words here. First line, last word, dayarhaha.
Dayarhaha.
Yeah, and then the third line, first word, vrityartham.
Vrityartham.
Yeah.
Vrityartham te jayanto.
Yeah. Te jayanto.
पापोऽयं कृष्ण रामेत्यभिलपति निजं गूहितं दुश्चरित्रं निर्लज्जस्यास्य वाचा बहुतरकथनीयानि मे विघ्नितानि भ्राता मे वन्द्यशीलो भजति किल सदा विष्णुमित्थं बुधांस्ते निन्दन्त्युच्चैर्हसन्ति त्वयि निहितमतीन् तादृशं मा कृता माम्. श्वेतच्छायं कृते त्वां मुनिवरवपुषं प्रीणयन्ते तपोभिः त्रैतायां सृक्स्त्रुवाद्यङ्कितमरुणतनुं यज्ञरूपं यजन्ते सेवन्ते तन्त्रमार्गैः विलसदरिगदं द्वापरे श्यामलाङ्गं नीलं सङ्कीर्तनाद्यैरिह कलिसमये मानुषास्त्वं भजन्ते.
Last word, manushastvam bhajante.
Manushastvam bhajante.
We can stop there. Yeah, we will switch.
Okay.
सोऽयं कालेयकालो जयति मुररिपो यत्र सङ्कीर्तनाद्यैः नैरेव मार्गैरखिलद न चिरात् त्वत्प्रसादं भजन्ते जातस्त्रेता कृता दावपि हि किल कलौ सम्भवं कामयन्ते दैवात् तत्रैव जातान् विषयविषरसैर्मा विभो वञ्चयास्मान् भक्तास्तावत् कलौ स्युः द्रमिलभुवि ततो भूरिशस्तत्र चोच्चैः कावेरीं ताम्रपर्णी मम किल कृता मालाञ्च पुण्यां प्रतीचीम् माम् अप्येतदनर्भवमपि च विभो किञ्चिद् अञ्चद्रसं त्वयस्या this is kamana kinchid.
That course continuously. Kinchid anchatrasam tvai asha pashair nibhadya
किञ्चिद् अञ्चद्रसं त्वय्याशापाशैर्निबध्य भ्रमयन भगवन् पूरय निषेवाम्.
Third line, first part, ha, mam, apetadantar bhavamapi. That word.
माम् अप्येत
Tadantar bhavamapi.
तदन्तर्भवनपि
Bhavamapi.
भवमपि माम् अप्येतद तदन् तदनर भव
Tadantar.
तदन्तर्भवनपि च विभो किञ्चिद् अञ्चद्रसं त्वय्या शापशैर्निबध्य भ्रमयन भगवन् पूरया त्वन्निषेवाम्. I don't know if you know. दृष्ट्वा धर्मद्रुहं तं कलिमपकरुणं प्राण्महीक्षित्परीक्षेत् हन्तुं व्याकृष्टखड्गोऽपि न विनिहतवान् सारिवेदी गुणांशात् त्वत्सेवाद्याशु सिद्ध्येत् असदिह न तथा त्वत्परे चैष यत्तु प्रागेव रोगादिभिरपहरते तत्र हा शिक्षयैनम्. Sorry, few reasons.
It's okay. Yeah,
Ganga,
Ganga, Geeta. Yeah, keep going.
गङ्गा गीता च गायत्री अपि च तुलसिका गोपिका चन्दनं तत् सालग्रामाभिपूजा परपुरुष तथैकादशी नाम वर्णः यत्नान्यै कलिसमये त्वत्प्रसादप्रवृद्धया क्षिप्रं मुक्तिप्रदानि ऋषयः तेषु मां सज्जयेथाः.
The third line, last word, just that last word, pravridhya.
प्रवृद्ध्या
Yeah.
तत्प्रसादप्रवृद्ध्या. नेक्स्ट श्लोक. देवर्षीणां पितॄणामपि न पुनर्ऋणी किङ्करो वास भूमन् योऽसौ सर्वात्मना त्वां शरणमुपगतः सर्वकृत्यानि हित्वा तस्योत्पन्नं विकर्माप्यखिलम् अपनुदस्येव चित्तस्थत्वं तन्मे पापोत्थतापान् पवनपुरपते रुन्धि भक्तिं प्रणीयाः. श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः.
Good. Let's start with 93. Jyoti Dev, you can be a student, and see, go ahead. Lakshmi Edavalli ji, are you on? I do see Lakshmi.
Yeah,
Okay. It's 93. So 93, at least in my book, the title is Pancha Vimshater, which is 25 number, Gurubhyash Shikshaniyasya Varnanam. So the lessons from 25 gurus. Okay, so in the 91st Dashakam, we saw a little bit about bhakti. 92nd was a combination of bhakti and karma margam. 93 is a little bit more getting into that jnana yoga. So just learning about knowledge, but from 25 gurus who he's going to reference. Most of you would have heard of 24. There's a 25th guru also in this.
Rajesh,
yeah.
Sir, excuse me. I think last stanza of 92 meaning challala ninga.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Oh, Devarshinam Pitranam Api.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Yes.
that's a small one. Okay. So what it kind of wraps up, right, by saying that Devarshina. Okay. So at the summary, it's kind of a summarizing 92, saying that whoever is doing all the right things that is to be done to the devas, to the gods, to the rishis, to the pitras. So we do pitru tarpanam and all of that, right? So whoever is doing all of those things, right? And whoever is also taking refuge in Bhagavan by abandoning all this. So when you do all of that, like we said in several times, is you still create karma, right? You get all those good things, but you actually create more karma. So one who does all these things which you're supposed to do, but do it by abandoning all the results of your action. So not worrying about all of these, the outcome of it, and doing your duty, and take complete refuge in Bhagavan. He says that is the right thing to do, right? And even Bhagavad Gita, there's a lot talked about it, right? It doesn't mean that the confusion that normally comes here is by saying that, oh, how can I, for example, if I want to go play, right? It's a game coming, then people are like, okay, do you want to say that I should not want to win? You should want to win, because that's the only way you're going to train yourself hard, because you want to win. But he says, don't worry about the outcome. So if the outcome doesn't go your way, or if the outcome goes your way, either way, do not get attached to it. Let the outcome not affect the prep you're doing and the intent that you have of coming into it. So which is what he's kind of summarizing here, saying the best way to follow karma yoga and bhakti yoga together is to do your duties. You can want something in return, because that's the only way you're going to work towards that goal. But do your actions, and no matter what the results are, don't get attached to the results, and don't swing either way, left or right, depending on where the results, what the outcome of the results are. So that's kind of how he's summarizing this, and saying, please eradicate, papota tapa, and please eradicate all the sorrows and all the ailments I have. And bhaktim praniyaha, and give me deep devotion towards you. Okay, so 93, first one. बन्धुस्नेहं विजह्यां तव हि करुणया त्वय्युपावेशितात्मा सर्वं त्यक्त्वा चरेयं सकलमपि जगद्वीक्ष्य मायाविलासं नानात्वाद्भ्रान्तिजन्यात् सति खलु गुणदोषावबोधे विदिर्वा व्यासेतो वा कथं तौ त्वयि निहितमतेः वीतवैषम्य बुद्धेः. So this starts original the reference on this, like I said last several times, was there's something called as a Uddhava Gita. So it's a time when Krishna is leaving, and so Uddhava has been the greatest of the devotee and the greatest of friend of Krishna. So he and Maitreya Maharishi, they both get to see Krishna in the last time, like towards the end. So Uddhava is telling Krishna that how can you go? Like if you go, like what is going to happen to the entire world, right? And he says, I want to come along with you. Take me along with you. So at the time, Krishna tells Uddhava that you are still, although you have all the knowledge which Uddhava has, he says you still are attached to me as a person, because you still want to be with me, right? And he says the best way for somebody to get liberated, to get on that path, is not to have any attachment with anyone, because the moment you have attachment with anything, you are guaranteed another birth, right? There's no doubt about it. You cannot escape it. And I think I must have told the story of Jada Bharata in 20. That's come. If not, I'll tell some other time. Like he was almost liberated, but at the time of death, he still he was worried about the deer he was taking care of. And then he actually took birth as a deer. So he says there's no escaping that. It is just a law that is there, right? So Krishna says that if you want to be truly liberated, Uddhava, he says, do not even worry. You should pray and you should be attached to Krishna, but don't get attached to me as a person. You can be devoted to me even though I am not in person. I don't have to be in person for you to be devoted to me. So he starts by saying, Bandhu Sneham. He says, step by step, we should start abandoning, not by abandoning, I don't mean disregard or discard, but I think cut the attachments that you are having, which is very hard, right? We are still all relatively young. But he says when the time comes, that's why even in our general, the 4 stages of varnashramas, they say at particular age, you have to walk out of the house. Because the more you stay in the house, the more you're going to get attached. There's no doubt about it, right? And it is hard, but I'm just saying what is being said. So he says with that, he says that everything that you are seeing is all just relationship which are not true. It is only the relationship you have in this world, in this birth of yours. Because the soul is truly not attached to anything else. And the more and more you come to the realization that, that soul is independent of all the sorrows and everything that is going on, and then you are truly who your original source is, which you will little bit realize after you die. At the same, the more you realize that earlier, the more you can discard things, right? So that is how he starts off by saying, how that is important. This is the advice he's going to give to Uddhava, and then he's going to give more, which then comes from the 25 gurus. So he says, with that in mind, stop seeing the duality that we spoke about between things, right? And realize that the soul is the same for everybody else. It's all connected at the end of the day. So, Bandhu Sneham Bijahyam Tavahi Karunaya, with your devotion, with your blessings, with your compassion, give me the strength to be able to fight it. Because even here, Bhartri says that even he's not there yet, right? It's very hard. So he says, with your karuna, you please give me the blessings and the compassion so I can gradually start going towards it. It's not like cold turkey you can quit on day one. So it's like gradually help me to get on that path. Tavahi karunaya, comma, tvayu paveshitatma, comma, sarvam tyaktva chareyam, comma, sakalamapi jagat vikshya maya vilasam. Bandhusneham bijahyam tavahi karunaya tvayupavešitātma sarvam tyaktva chareyam sakalamapi jagat vikshya maya vilasam.
बन्धुस्नेहं विजह्यां तव हि करुणया त्वय्युपावेशितात्मा सर्वं त्यक्त्वा चरेयं सकलमपि जगद्वीक्ष्य मायाविलासम् बन्धुस्नेहं विजह्यां तव हि करुणया त्वय्युपावेशितात्मा सर्वं त्यक्त्वा चरेयं सकलमपि जगद्वीक्ष्य मायाविलासम्
बन्धुस्नेहं विजह्यां तव हि करुणया त्वय्युपावेशितात्मा सर्वं त्यक्त्वा चरेयं सकलमपि जगद्वीक्ष्य मायाविलासं बन्धुस्नेहं विजह्यां तव हि करुणया त्वय्युपावेशितात्मा सर्वं त्यक्त्वा चरेयं सकलमपि जगद्वीक्ष्य मायाविलासम्.
No comma after Vijahyam in the first line, but you would have probably paused for breath. So the first line after Karunaya, there is a comma, okay?
Yes, okay.
Nanatvad Kranti Janyat, comma, Sati Khalu Guna Doshavabhode Vidhirva, comma, Vyasedho Va Khatam Tau Tvai Nihita Matehe. So put a visarga comma, nihita matehe. Next line, the next word, the vita, there is a ir that goes away. Vita vaishamya buddhehe. Nanhatvad bhranti janyat sati khalu gunadosha avabhode vidhirva vyasedho vakatam tau tvai nihita matehe. Vita vaishamya buddhehe.
नानात्वात् भ्रान्तिजन्यात् सति खलु गुणदोषावबोधे विधिर्वा व्यासेथो वा कथं तौ त्वयि निहितमतेः वीतवैषम्यबुद्धेः नानात्वात् भ्रान्तिजन्यात् सति खलु गुणदोषावबोधे विधिर्वा व्यासेथो वा कथं तौ त्वयि निहितमतेः वीतवैषम्यबुद्धेः
नानात्वाद् भ्रान्तिजन्यात् सति खलु गुणदोषावबोधे विधिर्वा व्यासेधो वा कथं तौ त्वयि व्यासेधो वा कथं तौ त्वयि निहितमतेः वीतवैषम्यबुद्धेः नानात्वात् भ्रान्तिजन्यात् सति खलु गुणदोषावबोधे विधिर्वा व्यासेतो वा कथं तौ त्वयि निहितमतेः वीतवैषम्यबुद्धेः.
Answer 2. Kshutrishna lopamatre satatakritaधियो jantavah santyanantaha tebhyo vijnanavatvat purusha iha varaha tajjanirdurlabhaiva tatrapyatmatmanasyat sukrudapi cha ripuhu yastvahinyastachetaha Tapochitterupayam smarati sahi suhritim swatma vairi tatonyah. So you all would have heard about this, it's something called as a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where it says that it first step, it's a pyramid structure. The bottom of the pyramid structure is psychological needs, which we all have. We all need air, we all need basic water, we all need shelter, basic food. So all of that we all need. And without that, nobody's going to want. Then it goes up and says people need to feel safe, right? That is the next step. So once they feel safe, that is, they are not in a forest or a war or something, they are not safe. Then they will want love, right? Love means relationship and all of that. And similarly, it goes, and only then they go to thinking about self-realization and enlightenment. Somebody who doesn't even have water or basic food is not going to be thinking about how do I liberate myself, right? So this is hierarchy of needs which is there, which is described, which is how the evolution kind of goes, right, in terms of consciousness. So what that means is, like, there is consciousness even in a small piece of stone. There is nothing where
Ayush, your voice, I think, I don't know for others, but
oh,
sometimes words
it's
are
cutting
not
off.
audible.
Okay.
No, for us it's fine. For us it's fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
I don't.
it's fine for us. Yeah.
For me,
Okay.
I think I am missing some words. Okay, that's okay. Good.
So like we said, is even in the smallest of Paramanu, there is Paramatma is there. So there's some consciousness, except that consciousness is not as active. So plants have consciousness, even the smallest of insects have, so do we, right? But we are at the higher stage of consciousness. So here it is he's saying that, and I forget what I think it was Devaram. Yesterday, they were singing in the temple for Shiva Parvati Kalyanam, and there is one line there which says, Pullagi, Puluvagi, Pambagi, and it goes, right? Saying that it all evers through various levels of consciousness, and finally I've gotten a human birth, which is exactly what this is telling. So after going through all these levels of consciousness, we have finally gotten a human birth. Now, he says, now that you got the human birth, he says, who is your biggest enemy? The biggest enemy is not the person who you think hates you the most. That person is not your biggest enemy. We always keep thinking, oh, I'm all stressed because of this person. No. He says the biggest enemy is your mind. If you can put your mind to use in the proper direction, it is your best friend. If you put your mind to use in the wrong direction, your mind is your worst enemy. So he says here, with this, anyone who first step of anything, like Alcohol Anonymous, right? The first step is realizing you have a problem. So he says the first step to when you are not happy with something, the first step to realize is it is nobody, it is your mind. Right? Your mind is getting attached to these things. Your mind is wanting these things. And if you can learn to control your mind, then it's going to become your best friend. He says, so please, Guru Rapa, bless me so I can now bring my mind under control and I'm not getting worried about this, because this, I think the word, I'm looking for a specific word. Anyway, Durlabhaiva, Tajanir Durlabhaiva. So this human birth, which is so Durlabham, it is not easy to get. I've finally gotten this. And we don't know how many human births we have had. So let me not put this birth to waste by not keeping my mind under control. Shut Trishna Lopamatre, Satata Kritadhiyo, Jantavaha, put is Jantavas, Santyanantaha, add a Visargan comma in the word line, Santyanantaha. Next line, the is goes away if you have it in the beginning of the line. Tebyo Vijnana Vatvat Purusha Iha Varaha. Again, is goes away, Visarga comma Varaha. Taj Janir Durlabhaiva. Shutrashna Lopamatre Satata Kritadhiyo Jantava Santyanantaha Tebyo Vijnana Vatvat Purusha Iha Varaha. Taj Janir Durlabhaiva.
क्षुतृष्णालोपमात्रे सततकृतधियो जन्तवः सन्ध्यनन्दाः तेभ्यो विज्ञानवत्वात् पुरुषैः वरः तज्जनिर्दुर्लभैव क्षुतृष्णालोपमात्रे सततकृतधियो जन्तवः सन्ध्यनन्दाः तेभ्यो विज्ञानवत्वात् पुरुष इह वरः तज्जनिर्दुर्लभैव.
क्षुतृष्णा लोपमात्रे सततकृतधियो जन्तवः सन्त्यनन्ताः तेभ्यो विज्ञानवत्वात् पुरुष इह वरः तज्जनेर्दुर्लभैव क्षुतृष्णा लोपमात्रे सततकृतधियो जन्तवः सन्त्यनन्ताः तेभ्यो विज्ञानवत्वात् पुरुष इह वरः तज्जनेर्दुर्लभैव.
Next word, cannot break that word. Tatrapyatmatmanaha. It's one word. Tatrapyatmatmanaha. That takes a is sound. Matmanas syat suhrudapi cha ripuhu visarga comma. Next word, yastvai. There is, if you have a ir or a r, that goes away. Yastvai nyasta chetaha visarga comma. Next line you have is, that goes away. Tapo chitte rupayam smarati sahi suhrit, comma, swatma vairi tatonyah. Tatrapyatmatmanah syat suhrudapi cha ripuhu yastvahi nyastachetaha tapo chitte rupayam smarati sahi suhrit swatma vairi tatonyah.
तत्राप्यात्मात्मनः स्याद् सुहृदपि च रिपुः यस्त्वयि न्यस्तचेताः तावोचित्तेरुपायं स्मरति स हि सुहृत् स्वात्मवैरी ततोऽन्यः तत्राप्यात्मात्मनः स्याद् सुहृदपि च रिपुः यस्त्वयि न्यस्तचेताः तावोचित्तेरुपायं स्मरति स हि सुहृत् स्वात्मवैरी ततोऽन्यः
तत्राप्यात्मात्मनः स्यात् सुहृदपि. I don't think I got this.
Syat suhrudapi cha ripuhu.
Oh, okay. Suhrudapi cha ripuhu. Okay. Tatrapyatmatmanah syat suhrudapi cha ripuhu yastvayinyastacheetaha tapochitterupayam smarati sahit suhrit swatmavairi tatonyah tatrapyatmatmanah syat suhrudapi cha ripuhu yastvayinyastacheetaha tapochitterupayam smarati sahi suhrit swatmavairi tatonyah.
That's a three. Tvatkarunhe pravritte kaiva nahi guruhu lokavrittepi bhuman sarva krantapi bhumir nahi chalati tatah satshamam shikshaheyam grinhiyamisha tattat vishaya parichayepya prasaktim samirat vyaptat panchatmano me gagana guru vashad dhatu nirlepata cham. We spoke about the 25 gurus. It's going to start from here. So Krishna is telling Uddhava the story about another story. He's telling that within Narayaneeyam, he's talking about Krishna telling Uddhava about a story of a king called Yadu. So that Yadu, one day he sees one Brahmin, one very liberated person. He says, you seem to be alone, but you seem to have all the knowledge that is to be known. So he says, you must have had a great guru who must have given you all that knowledge. So that Brahmana says, no, I don't have one guru. I have 24 gurus, right? From whom I actually take all this knowledge. And with that, the Brahmana goes on to describe who his 24 gurus are and what each of the guru has taught him. So that comes over several stanzas. So in this, he talks about 3 gurus in the stanza. The first guru, he says, is like nature as in earth, tree, mountains. Kind of, he takes that as the first guru. He says, when you look at all of these things, whether it be the tree, right? The tree comes and gives everybody fruits, vegetables, flowers, everything. It expects nothing from you in return. Similarly, the mountains gives you streams, it gives you all of these things, gets nothing in return. In earth, You walk, you jump, you harass the earth. The earth always gives you things that you need to live, right? So he says that is the first lesson I have learned is the concept of forbearance, right? No matter what anybody does to me, I should see how I can be useful to the other person. So that is the first lesson I'm learning from the earth, the tree, and the mountains. The second lesson he's talking about is wind, right? So he says we all come in contact with things which are good, we come in contact with things which are bad. Just like how when the wind is blowing, it sometimes picks up the fragrance of something, and then at some point it passes over something which doesn't smell good either. But the wind truly does not get attached to the fragrance. It just carries that fragrance from one point to another. At one point it drops it off, but the wind doesn't continue to have that fragrance with it all through, whether it be good or bad. So he says that is the second lesson I'm learning is whether I'm coming in contact with good things or I'm coming in contact with bad qualities, I should not get attached to those qualities, right? I should just remain neutral in both in my state of mind and in terms of the behavior. That is the second lesson I'm learning from the wind. In the third lesson, he talks about this little bit more like space, right? Space as a concept. So he says we all are made up of the Panchabhutas, right? We all have a combination of all of these things in us. So similarly, he says the space, that's the space which is inside our body or any of these Panchabhutas for that matter. But in this case, space is talking about. But it is also, I can also look up and I can see nothingness, which we call as space or sky, right? So it kind of exists outside of me. It also exists inside of me. Very similarly, air exists inside of us. Air exists outside of us, right? And the air, whether I exist or not, air is going to exist outside, right? It is not tied to me, but I need air to survive. He says that is the concept I learned about the Paramatma, to say that the Paramatma is inside every single person, but the Paramatma is also outside of everybody else, and the Paramatma is independent of every being that is inside this world. But every being in this world requires that Paramatma to survive. So that is a relation that I'm learning about the Paramatma, looking at primarily the space and the sky, but you can apply it to any of the Panchabhutams here. So those are the three gurus that he's talking here, which is the earth, the tree, and then the wind and the sky in this. Tvat karunye pravritte ka iva nahi guruhu visarga comma. Next word ir goes away. Loka vrittepi bhuman comma. Sarva krantapi bhumir nahi chalati tataha is goes away visarga comma. Satkshamam shikshayeyam. Tvatkarunhe pravritte kaiva nahi guruhu lokavrittepi bhuman sarvakrantaapi bhumir nahi chalati tatah sakshamam shikshahehyam.
त्वत्कारुण्ये प्रवृत्ते कैव न हि गुरुः लोकवृत्ते विभूमन् सर्वाक्रान्ता विभूमिर्न हि चलति ततः तत्क्षमां शिक्षयेयम् त्वत्कारुण्ये प्रवृत्ते कैव न हि गुरुः लोकवृत्ते विभूमन् सर्वाक्रान्ता विभूमिर्न हि चलति ततः तत्क्षमां शिक्षयेयम्
त्वत्कारुण्ये प्रवृत्ते क इव न हि गुरुः लोकवृत्तेऽपि भूमन् सर्वाक्रान्तापि भूमिर्न हि चलति ततः तत् सत्क्षमां शिक्षयेयम् त्वत्कारुण्ये प्रवृत्ते क इव न हि गुरुः लोकवृत्तेऽपि भूमन् सर्वाक्रान्तापि भूमिर्न हि चलति ततः सत्क्षमां शिक्षयेयम्
Griniyamisha comma tat tad vishaya parichayepya, that's one word, parichayepya prasaktim samirat comma vyaptat vanchatmano me comma gagana guru vashad bhatu nirlepata cha. Grinhiyamisha तत्तद् विषय परिचयेप्य प्रसक्तिं समीरात् व्याप्तत् वंचात्मनो मे गगन गुरुवशात् धातु निर्लेपता च.
गृह्णीयामीश तत्तद्विषयपरिचयेऽप्यप्रसक्तिं समीरात् व्याप्तत्वं चात्मनो मे गगनगुरुवशाद् पादो निर्लेपता च गृह्णीयामीश तत्तद्विषयपरिचयेऽप्यप्रसक्तिं समीरात् व्याप्तत्वं चात्मनो मे गगनगुरुवशाद् पादो निर्लेपता च.
In the fourth line, after Chatmano me, anga pause. Okay, fourth line.
Chatmano me, there is a comma.
After that, there is a comma, yeah.
गृह्णीयामीश तत्तद्विषयपरिचयेऽप्यप्रसक्तिं समीरात् व्याप्तत्वञ्चात्मनो मे गगनगुरुवशाद् भातु निर्लेपता च गृह्णीयामीश तत्तद्विषयपरिचयेऽप्यप्रसक्तिं समीरात् व्याप्तत्वञ्चात्मनो मे गगनगुरुवशात् भातु निर्लेपता च.
Support. स्वच्छस्यां पावनोऽहं मधुर उदकवत् वह्निवन्मास्म गृह्णां सर्वानीनोऽपि दोषं तरुषु तमिव मां सर्वभूतेष्वपेयां पुष्टिर्नष्टिकलानां शशिन इव तनोः नात्मनोऽस्तीति वेद्यां तोयादिव्यस्तमार्ताण्डवदपि च तनुष्वेकतां त्वत्प्रसादात्. So in this, he's going to talk about 4 additional gurus, right? So the first one he talks about is water. So he says, when you think of a fresh spring water, like if you go to Alaska, you have this water coming from the glacier, right? Fresh water that is actually coming. He says that water is uncontaminated. It's just fresh water. It is just gentle. It is very calming, right? It's very nice to even hear the sound of the water. You feel like wanting to touch that water, drink that water, stay around the water. He says, that's how I've learned how saintly people, how people who are truly devoted need to be. He says it should be like pure water. People should be want to be around you. People should want to listen to you. People should be want to. So with that, because the water purifies everything, right? At the end of the day for us. Similarly, being around those saintly people, they purify everything. So that's what I'm learning from fresh water that is there. The next one he talks about is fire, Vanni or Agni here. So the fire, he says, are in no, when when you do a homam, you put whatever you want into the fire. Of course, we don't put chemicals, but when you put any organic things into the fire, it just consumes it, right? So he says that is what I'm learning about how people should truly treat food, and I'll clarify it. Not that means you should eat everything. It says whatever comes your way is what you get, right? You should not be picky and choosy, which is very hard for us. We all have our taste, our preferences and everything, right? But he says the liberated people, they only get food which is offered to them by destiny. And I think I must have said this, that a lot of these people don't go asking for bhiksha in the same street for the second time, because then they'll start knowing which person is giving what food, whose food is better, and they'll start going to that house. So they avoid even going to the same street, because they should not get attached to food. So he says that is what fire teaches me, is whatever comes our way is what I need to eat that day, and then be agreeing of it. The third thing
I am connecting the thing whatever you are saying with the temple. See, if now regular temple போனோம்னு வெச்சுக்கோங்களேன், they would not even show ஆரத்தி to the regular people. ஸ்ரீரங்கத்துல ரெகுலர் பீப்புள் வராதீங்கன்றவா, அந்த மாதிரி ஆயிட்டு இருக்கு இங்கேயும் இப்போ. ஸோ ஐ எம் கனெக்டிங் வித் தட். ரெகுலராக போய் பிக்ஷை எடுக்கக்கூடாது அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி இந்த மாதிரி இப்போ டெம்பிளே அந்த மாதிரி ஆயிட்டு வருது இப்போ, கொஞ்சம் ஸ்லோவா.
What I have heard about that is like whatever you are eating should be enough for your fire to digest. More than what your body needs, you should not eat. So that
is also true. That is also true. But in the context, எப்படின்னாக்கா இப்போ பெரியவா மகா பெரியவா has a story, and which is what I've heard. So which one day he had a particular dish. He had katrika, brinjal, and he liked it, right? And then he ended up asking who made this, because people gave him food every time. And then he realized his mistake, and then he fasted for 1 week. And people said, why are you fasting? He says, because I liked that so much that I was curious to know who made it. So which means that I'm getting attached to the taste of that, right? So as a sannyasi, you should not get attached to the taste of anything. It's whatever comes my way, right? You should accept that and take it. And by getting attached, then you're going to be like, no, I want Jyoti's cooking. I don't want somebody else's cooking, right? You start getting those preferences, which a sannyasi should not. We are not in the liberated state, so we can pick and choose, right? In the case left. So third one he talks about is moon, our moon. So he says we all go through different stages in our life, right? We are small, we are big, we get old and all of that stuff. Similarly, we become rich, we are poor, we have health problems and all that. He says that is very similar to the waxing and the waning of a moon. When somebody is looking at the night sky, they keep thinking the moon is changing the size. But in reality, the moon is not changing the size. The moon remains always, the size of the moon is fixed, right? It just looks different. So he says that's what teaches me about the soul, that while my body may be a small 2-year-old boy or a 40-year-old man, or it might become 70 years tomorrow, might be sick, might be strong today, I might be rich, I might be poor, the soul is like the moon. It never changes, right? It is always constant, always fixed. It is just the body that keeps changing, just like the waxing and the waning of the moon. Then the fourth one he talks about here is about the sun. So he says the same sun which is there, when I look at it on water, I see the reflection of the sun in water, and the water appears to shine or sparkle. When I see that sun reflecting on my windows, it looks different. When I look at the sun directly, it looks different. When I don't look at the sun, but there's light coming into my room, it feels different. But the sun is always the same, but it looks different to me because its purpose of it is different. He says similarly, he says the Supreme Paramatma is the same Paramatma. It is him who's reflecting in different forms to various things that we are seeing. So none of these things can exist without the Paramatma. It is just his energy reflecting as a stone, reflecting as a tree, reflecting as a mountain, reflecting as us. That is what I'm learning from the sun. And so those are the four gurus here: water, fire, moon, and sun. So Swachah put is Swachasyam Pavanoham, comma, Madhura Udaka Vad Vanni Vanma Sma Grinnam, comma, Sarvaninopi Dosham, comma, Tarushu Tamiva Mam Sarva Bhuteshva Veyam. Swachhasyam Pavanoham Madhura Udakavat Vanni Vanmasma Grinnam Sarvani Nopi Dosham Tarushu Tamiva Mam Sarva Bhuteshva Veyam.
स्वच्छस्यां पावनोऽहं मधुर उदवगद् वह्निवन्मास्म गृह्णां सर्वानीनो विदोषं तरुषु तमिव मां सर्वभूतेष्वेयाम् स्वच्छस्यां पावनोऽहं मधुर उदवगद् वह्निवन्मास्म गृह्णां सर्वानीनो विदोषं तरुषु तमिव मां सर्वभूतेष्वेयाम्.
Rajesh is the second word Udagavat or Udavagat?
Udakavad.
Udagavat. Okay, thanks.
स्वच्छस्यां पावनोऽहं मधुर उदकवद् वह्निवन्मास्म गृह्णां सर्वान्नीनोऽपि दोषं तरुषतमिव मां सर्वभूतेष्वेयाम् स्वच्छस्यां पावनोऽहं मधुर उदकवद् वह्निवन्मास्म गृह्णां सर्वान्नीनेऽपि दोषं तरुषतमिव मां सर्वभूतेष्वेयाम्.
Second line, Sarvaninopi Dosham. Second line, first word.
सर्वान्नीनोऽपि.
Pushtir Nashtihi put ih Nashtih Kalanam Shashina Iva Tanoho put visarga comma. Next line, next word, the ir goes away. Natmanostiti Vidyam, comma. Toyadi Vyasta Martanda Vadapicha, comma. Tanushvekatam Tvat Prasadat. So all of this is a little bit prayer also. It says, because of your prasadam, with your grace, with your blessings, let me also come to this understanding of these. Pushtirnashte kalanham shashina ivatanoho natmanostiti vidyam तोयादिव्यस्तमार्ताण्डवदपि च तनुष्वेकतां त्वत्प्रसादात्.
पुष्ट पुष्टिर्नष्टिः कलानां शशिन इव तनोः नात्मनोऽस्तीति विद्यां तोयादिव्यस्तमार्ताण्डवदपि च तनुष्वेकतां त्वत्प्रसादात् पुष्टिर्नष्टिः कलानां शशिन इव तनोः नात्मनोऽस्तीति विद्यां तोयादिव्यस्तमार्ताण्डवदपि च तनुष्वेकतां त्वत्प्रसादात्
पुष्टिर्नष्टिः कलानां शशिन इव तनोः नात्मनोऽस्तीति विद्यां तोया दिव्यस्तमार्ताण्डवदपि च तनुष्वेकतां त्वत्प्रसादात् पुष्टिर्नष्टिः कलानां शशिन इव तनोः नात्मनोऽस्तीतविद्यां तोया दिव्यस्तमार्ताण्डवदपि च तनुष्वेकतां त्वत्प्रसादात्.
A third line, Natmanostiti Vidyam. Last letter T, I think you said Ta there.
Okay.
Titi Vidyam.
Okay.
Let's just switch. I know we're halfway, but not halfway on the stanzas. Shailaja, Naishadam, you can be a student, and Minu, you can be a student. Stanza 5. स्नेहाद् व्याधातपुत्रप्रणयमृतकपोतायितो मास्म भुवं प्राप्तन् प्राश्नन् सहेयक्षुतमपि शयुवत् सिन्धुवत् श्यामगाधः मापप्तं योषिधादौ शिखिनिशलभवत् भृङ्गवत् सारभागी भूयासं किन्तु तद्वद्धनचयनवशान् माहमीश प्रणेशम्. Although sometimes the characters or the people, things change, but the lesson sometimes remains consistent. So next he talks about a pigeon. He talks about the story of a pigeon who, like a family of a pigeon, and the male pigeon who ends up, he was flying, building the nest, and the female taking care. They all have offsprings, and once what happened is a hunter comes, and then a hunter had a net trapped, and the child pigeons got trapped in the net. And what happens is the mother pigeon went to save all of them. The mother pigeon also got caught. The father pigeon went to save them. The father pigeon also got caught. Now, what he's trying to say is not to say don't go and rescue your family, but he says here that you have your birth, and the purpose of your birth is you figure out how you can get liberated, and you pull people along with you to get liberated. But if you get stuck into all of these material things more and more, it is like a trap. It just keeps pulling you in and in the wrong direction without you able to get liberated. You're going to be born again. The cycle is just going to continue. So that is what he's saying. That's a lesson I'm learning, because there's no way that Father Pigeon could have saved those family from the hunter. But he still thought he wanted to go do it, and he ended up giving up his life also. Right. So that's a specific example he's giving here. And the next one he talks about is a python, a snake. So this is also similar to the fire. He says the python never goes looking for a prey. It sits in one place. And whatever comes along its way, it is going to eat it. Whether it be a big buffalo that comes, or a small deer that comes, or whatever comes its way, it's going to eat it. Right? He says that is what I'm learning from a python, is to say, I am going to get whatever food I'm destined to get, I'm going to get it. If I'm destined not to get any food, I'm not going to get any food. And even recently I was traveling, and then although I was sitting in business class, I had ordered for an Asian vegetarian, but unfortunately United did not have the Asian vegetarian. And they're like apologizing, and they said, do you mind taking a salmon instead? Do you mind taking this? I said, neither of that matters to me. I can't get anything, So, but I just remembered this, right? Saying that I'm just destined not to get something there. You can't worry about it. And anyway, so that's the second one on the python here. The third one he talks about is about the ocean. So he says the ocean, of course, when the tide comes, we can say the ocean can go up and down, but that's also because of the influence of the moon, etc. But he says when the rain comes or the rain doesn't come, the ocean doesn't completely, dry out because there was no rain in the area. the ocean still remains, right? So he says, and the point he's trying to drive here is whether you have a windfall, a good fortune, or you don't have a fortune that actually comes, you should be like an ocean. You should always be steady. You should be continuing to do that. The fourth one he talks about is a moth. So, and here he's referencing a male, but also applies to females, where he says that just like how, we all the men and female, without controlling our senses, we we get trapped very easily and fall for the opposite gender. He says all of this becomes uncontrollable. It is because of the mind. And he says it's very similar to a moth, which actually flies straight into a fire just to actually get burnt. So he says similarly, that's what is happening, especially when you're in the path of liberation. It says you have to have control over your senses and not fall into these traps. And the last one, there are 5 things in this. The last one he talks here about is like a honey bee. And there are honey bees. There are one type of bee which goes and collects the nectar from flower to flower, and there's one which actually manufactures those thing in the beehives, right? And he says the problem, what happens is the honeybee which keeps collecting all this honey gets trapped into the hive because somebody else is going to come take that hive off and go. It never gets to enjoy that honey. So he says, he compares that to wealth, saying that the more you accumulate wealth, suddenly something is going to happen and you're going to have a huge bank balance sitting, which you are not going to be able to use it, right? And it's just going to go waste. All the wealth you accumulated goes to waste. He says the more you can distribute it in the right way when you are alive, it's better. Otherwise, it's all going to go to waste anyway. I mean, you are not going to benefit anyways. Snehat vyadhat putra pranaya mrita kapothayito masma bhuvam. So that line is continuous, comma at the very end. Praptam prashnan saheya kshudamapi shayuvat, comma sindhu vat syamagadaha.
Rajesh, can you say the second word? In my book it has Vyasanamrita.
Yes, in first line.
Snehat
Vyadata putra pranayamrita.
Oh, Matikanma.
Okay. Can you just change it? I don't know what the difference is. Pranayamrita. Snehat vyadhata putra pranayamrita kapotahito masma bhuvam praptam prashnan saheya kshudamapi shayuvat sindhuvat syamaghadaha. Shailaja, are you going or? Okay, maybe she's on.
It is Shailaja, right? Shailaja and
Naishadam, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I'm here. स्नेहाद्भ्याधात्तपुत्र प्रणयमृतकपोता पोतायितो मास्मभू प्राप्तं प्राश्नन् सहेय
श्रुतमपि शयुवत् सिन्धु.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
मपि शयुवत् सिन्धुवत् श्यामगाधः स्नेहाद्व्याधात्तपुत्रप्रणयमृतकपोतायितो मास्मभुवं प्राप्तं प्राश्नन् सहेयक्षुधमपि शयुवत् सिन्धुवत् श्यामगाधः.
स्नेहात् व्यादास्तपुत्रप्रणयमृतकपोतायितो मास्मभुवं प्राप्तं प्राश्नन् सहेय क्षुतमपि शयुवत् सिन्धुवत् श्यामगाधः. स्नेहात् व्यादास्तपुत्रप्रणयमृतकपोतायितो मास्मभुवं प्राप्तं प्राश्नन् सहेय क्षुतमपि शयुवत् सिन्धुवत् श्यामगाधः.
Ma paptam yoshidadau shikhini shalabhavat, comma bhringavat sara bhagi bhuyasam. So put a plus there, and then after the next word bhuyasam, then put a comma, bhuyasam. Kintu tad vad dhana chayana bashan mahamisha pranesham. मापप्तं योषिधादौ शिखिनिशलभवत् भृङ्गवत्सारभागी भूयासं किन्तु तद्वद्धनचयनवशान्माहमीश प्रणेशम्
मा पप्तं योषिदादौ शिखिनि शलभवत् भृङ्गवत्सारभागी भूयासं किन्तु तद्वद्धनचयनवशान्माहमीश प्रणेशम् मा पप्तं योषिदादौ शिखिनि शलवत् भृङ्गवत्सारभागी भूयासं किन्तु वशान्माहमीश प्रणेशम्
मा पप्तं योषितादौ शिखिनिशलभवत् भृङ्गवत्सारभागी भूयासं किन्तु तत्त्वत्तनचयनवशान्माहमीश प्रणेशम् मा पप्तं योषिदादौ शिखिनिशलभवत् मा
The
पप्तं
shalabhavat varika confused.
योषिदादौ मा पप्तं योषिदादौ शिखिनिशलभवत् भृङ्गवत्सारभागी भूयासं किन्तु तत्त्वत्तनचयनवशान्माहमीश प्रणेशम्
6. मा भद्यासं तरुण्या गज इव वशया नार्जयेयं धनौगं हर्तान्यस्तं हि माध्वीहर इव मृगवन्मामृहं ग्राम्यगीतैः नात्या सज्जेय भोज्ये जश इव बलिशे पिङ्गलावन्निराशः सुप्यां भर्तव्ययोगात् कुरर इव विभो सामिशोन्यैर्न हन्यै. Talks about 6 examples in this. So the first one he talks about is a male elephant, so which is kind of similar like what we spoke about the census, is saying that a male elephant, when it actually sees a female elephant, when it gets attracted, but it goes towards a female, but the female is normally guarded with other males. So he ends up ending up in a fight and then ends up, he ends up getting killed, which happens. So he says with the primary purpose of that is controlling the senses and not getting distracted. That is the lesson he says from the male elephant. The second again comes back to the honey. So in the previous example, I think I might have said it slightly wrong. So the first, there are 2 parts to this. One is the honey is getting trapped in the honey hive, right? Which was the first example. So say you accumulate all this wealth and you get buried in your wealth and you are trapped in it, right? Which is the problem. The second here is of the honey gatherer who comes and takes it away. Says the more money you keep saving, he says somebody else is going to come and take it. Whether that somebody doesn't have to be a thief. It could be anybody who wants that money, or you might lose that money or something. The money is eventually going to go. So he says, the honey gatherers taught me that at the end of the day, your money is going to be enjoyed by somebody else who's going to come and take it away from you. Take it or, benefit from that, right? So he says, don't keep it more than what is required there. The third one he talks about is a deer. Mriga Vanmamuham Gramya Gitaihi. So he says when a deer is there, when a hunter has to catch a deer, he puts a specific kind of music, which is very soothing to the deer's ear. So the deer thinks something, it is like a mating call. The deer ends up going and ends up falling for it. So he says that he's talking about music here to say that depending on what type of music you hear, it influences your thoughts. And Meenu probably knows this better. So he says if you end up listening to certain types of music, that's going to shift your mind in the wrong direction. So he says it's very important what you listen through your ears, but because that also influences your thoughts. The next one he talks about is like a fish, which we all know. How do you go fishing? You put a bait, right? The fish thinks it is something for me. It catches on to it. It's a bait, right? So he says that is also because the fish is getting tempted with it, right? With its senses, that it is taste. Again, coming to the taste, but again, not that I have any control over any of this, but this says because of the taste, not able to control that, the fish is grabbing onto that bait, the fish is getting caught, which is the same example, right? To control the taste there. The next one he talks about is a prostitute called as Pingala. So he says that this is a lady called Pingala, who was a prostitute, and she used to stand outside of her house, waiting for men to come. And one day she kept waiting all evening and all night, and not one person came. And she ends up going, and because she needs money, so she ends up going and asking all these people. She kept discounting herself, and not a single person was interested in her. So she came to that realization. So sometimes something strike, certain incidents stick. She's been doing this for so many days, but on that one day something stuck to her, saying, why am I getting so attached to this that I'm having to do all these things? So when she came to the realization, she finally ended up giving up that profession, because she said, I don't have to do all these things. I'm doing all these things just because of money. And when you don't get that money at all, then you have learned a different life lesson of saying, I don't want to get attached to that money, which is what she ends up doing. So that is that example of a Pingala, which she says that, sometimes you should learn to give up. And the next one also is very similar, about a bird called as a Kurara bird, which was carrying a piece of meat, and all these other hawks and everything was chasing that Kurara bird, and it was running for its life. It realized, the moment I drop that piece of meat that I'm carrying, nobody is going to haunt me. I'll have peace of mind, right? So it says everybody's chasing me, everybody's coming to hurt me because I'm carrying that piece of meat. The moment that Kurara bird came to that realization, it just discarded that piece of meat. So every other bird and hawk went towards her meat. The Kurara bird just went on its way. So he says the lesson I'm learning from that is, the more things I hold on to, the more people are going to be behind me, and it's a burden for me. The more I learn to shed things off, the more free you become, right? The more relaxed you become mentally as well. So that is the lesson he's saying from this Kurara bird and from that Pingala lady. Ma bhadhyasam tarunya gaja iva bashaya, narjayeyam dhanaugham, hartanyastam hi madvihara iva, mrigavanma muham gramya geetaihi. So we just do one time the next few stanzas. We'll try to see if we can finish this. Ma bhadyasam tarunya gaja iva vashaya, narjayeyam dhanaugham, hartanyastam hi madvihara iva, mrigavanma muham gramya geetaihi.
Ma badhyasam tarunya gaja iva vashaya, narjayeyam dhanaugham, hartanyastam hi madvihara mrugavanma muham gramya geetaihi.
One time, yeah.
Sorry. Ma badhyasam tarunya gajaiva vashaya, narjayeyam dhanaugham, hartanyastam hi madvi harayiva, mrugavanma muham gramya geetaihi.
Natya sajjeya bhoje jasha iva balishe, Pingala van nirashaha, put a is and then put a plus. So Pingala van nirashas supyam bhartavya yogat, So third line after balishe, the whole thing comes together. Bhartavya yogat, kurara iva vibho samishonyair na hanyai. Natya sajjeya bhojye jasha iva bhalishe, pingala vannirasha supyam bhartavya yogat, kurara iva vibho samishonyair na hanyai.
Natya sajjeya bhojye jhushaiva badise, pingala vannirasha susyam bhartavya yogat, kurara iva vibho samisho nyairna hanyai.
Third line, bhojye jasha iva bhalishe. That word
Jasha, not Jusha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, jasha. And then the fourth line, first word is supyam bhartavya yoga.
Oh, supyam. Okay, yeah, I see that. Correct. Thank you.
Supyam illaya?
Supyam.
Okay.
ஜஷ இவ படிஷேன்னு இருக்கு. படிஷேவா பலிஷேவா?
Balishe. BALISHE.
Oh, inga balisheன்னு இருக்கு.
I have a D. Okay, balise.
Balishe, yeah.
Balishe. Okay. नात्या सज्जेय भोज्ये जश इव बलिशे पिङ्गलावन्निराशश्रुभ्यां पर्तव्यरोगात् कुरर इव विभो सामिशून्यैर्नहन्यै.
Fourth line la meenu Bhartavya yogat. Ya sound. Okay. Bhartavya yogat. Stanza 7. वर्तेह्यत्यक्तमानः सुखमतिशिशुवन् निस्सहायश्चरेयं कन्याया एकशेषो वलय इव विभो वर्जितान्योन्यघोषः त्वच्चित्तो नावबुद्ध्यै परमिषु कृति वक्ष्माभृदायानघोषं गेहेष्वन्यप्रणीतेषु अहिरिव निवसान्युन्दरोर्मन्दिरेषु. So the first one is Shishu, like a child, So he says that when we are also anxious about so many things, right? And we carry, but he says when you look at the child, it lives at that moment, right? It wants something, then it doesn't get something, it gets upset, but then it quickly moves on from that upset. You can easily distract the child and go. So he doesn't say we have to all get distracted, but he says we carry a lot of things, right? A lot of baggage from what happened before. He says that's what he's saying. It's just you have to be a little bit like a child in that aspect of not having to carry that baggage and leave things along, right? As you keep going on and then accept honor, dishonor, whatever it is as it is, and not get impacted by that. The second example he's giving here is Kanyaya Ekashesho Vale. He talks about, an example where there is people come to a house and then the parents are out. So there's a girl who is in the house. So she has to, break the grain, to cook something for the guest. But she doesn't want the guest to know that there is no food. So when she's in the kitchen and she's husking the thing, her bangles keep hitting against each other and making noise. So she removes some bangles. She continues till the bangles. So the people can hear that she's doing something. She doesn't want them to know. So finally, she removes everything and she only keeps 2 bangles. But even those 2 bangles keep hitting against each other. And so she finally keeps only 1 bangle. So that way they won't know that she's cooking. But the reason he's saying this is saying that the more people you are around with, which are bangles, more problems are going to come, right? The less people you are around with, less problems are going to come, right? So I'm talking about people who want to get liberated, right? Not if you say, oh, how can I not be a social person? I'm a very social person. So if when you want to get liberated, it says you got to be more and more little bit solo, because then you have less problems. The more people you are with, the more problems are going to come, right? Which is natural, which is the example of this girl wearing bangles. Then the third one, little bit, he says arrow. He says the person who's focused on making the arrow for the king, he's so focused on that. And even when the king comes, he doesn't realize that. He's so focused on his work. So similarly, he says, I want my mind to be so focused on you. And in the previous one of the Dasakam, he says, Nimisha Lavamapi. Not even for a fraction of a second, my mind has to think about anything else other than you. He says, give me the power to be constantly focused on you, in that same way. And the next one he talks about is a snake. It says the snake never goes and creates its own house. It always goes, wanders, finds a hole where the rats are, or finds some hole and goes, settles there, which is what Bhattatripad had said in Dashakam 3 when he talked about the greatest of devotees. He says the greatest of devotees never stay in one place, because then they get attached to the place. They constantly move, right? They keep moving from place to place without any house, because then they won't stay in one place, and you have to go to the temples and all of that stuff anyway. So he says, I want to be like a snake in that aspect, that I don't want to have a permanent residence at all. Varteya tyaktamanaha, sukhamati shishu 1. So double in there, 1. Nissahayash chareyam, kanyaya ekashesho valaya iva vibho, varjitanyonya घोषः. वर्तेह्यत्यक्तमानः सुखमतिशिशुवन्निस्सहायश्चरेह्यं कन्याया एकशेषो वलय इव विभो वर्जितान्योन्यघोषः.
वर्तेयत्यक्तमानः सुखमतिशिशुवन्निस्सहायश्चरेयं
कन्याया एकशेषो वलय इव विभो वर्जितान्योन्यघोषः
वर्धेयत्यक्तमानः सुखमतिशिशुवन्निस्सहायश्चरेयं कन्याया एकशेषो वलय इव विभो वर्जितान्योन्यघोषः
त्वच्चित्तो नावबुद्ध्यै, परमिषु कृदिव क्ष्माभृदायान घोषम. That's a half ksha there. Shmabhridayana ghosham, next word, geheshvanya praniteshu. So if you have a ish and a va, we're going to break that. So geheshvanya praniteshu, short u, next word will start with a. Ahiriva nivasan yundaror mandireshu. Cannot break that word too much. So
எனக்கு உந்துரோர்னு இருக்கு. நிவா
nivasan yunduror. Sorry, it's yunduror mandireshu. त्वच्चित्तो नावबुद्ध्यै परमिषु कृदिवक्ष्माभृदायान घोषं गेहेष्वन्यप्रणीतेषु अहिरिव निवसान् युन्दुरोर्मन्दिरेषु.
त्वच्छित्तो नावबुद्ध्यै परमिषु कृदिवक्ष्माभृदायानघोषं गेहेष्वन्यप्रणीतेषु अहिरिव निवसान्युन्दुरोन्मन्दिरेषु
त्वच्चित्तो नावबुद्ध्यै परमशुकृतिवक्ष्माभृतायानघोषं गेहेष्वन्यप्रणीतेषु आहिरिव निवसान् युन्दुरोर्मन्दिरेषु.
That's it. त्वय्येव त्वत्कृतं त्वं क्षपयसि जगतिर्यूर्णनाभात् प्रतीह्यां त्वच्चिन्ता त्वत्स्वरूपं कुरुत इति दृढं शिक्षये पेशकारात्. विद्भस्मात्मा च देहो भवति गुरुवरो यो विवेकं विरक्तिं धत्ते सञ्चिन्त्यमानो मम तु बहुरुजा पीडितोऽयं विशेषात्. First one talks about is a spider, and I think this many of you might have heard. It says like, just like how a spider, just from within it, it can spin an entire web that is actually there. And then when it wants, it can actually pull all of that web into its own body if we let that web be there, right? Which most of the times we end up erasing. So he says that teaches me about how this universe came about. This universe comes from that Narayana, and from eventually it goes back into that person, right? From the same supreme person. That is what the spider teaches me about the formation of the universe and everything. The second one he talks about is a beetle. He says what a beetle does, it brings a worm, and I don't know about this, but maybe somebody else knows this. So it says it brings a worm, puts it in its own hole or a trap, and then it keeps tapping on it. So the worm constantly keeps thinking about this beetle. And like we said, this, one thing which every in Bhagavatam it says is the most important thing is Ante Narayana Smritihi. At the time of your death, you should remember Narayana. Everything else is irrelevant. Now, to get there is all what we do is towards that. That's because you become what you want at the time of your birth, death. And what you're thinking and what you want is what you become in your next birth. So he says the only way to do that, just like how this beetle is constantly thinking of the worm is thinking of the beetle when it's prodding that, you have to constantly thinking of the Bhagavan, but it has to get well ingrained in your mind, so you don't, it will naturally come. So that is the lesson I'm learning, because that's how you can become that. That's how you can get liberated, is by constantly thinking or not one time. So this, I think, was primarily the 24 gurus he's talked about here, which is what is there in Bhagavatam about that King Yadu getting that information from the Brahmana, right? Now, Bhattacharya Part is introducing a 25th guru here. He says, those are the 24 gurus which are there, but from my personal experience, this is him telling, from personal experience, I have a 25th guru. He says the 25th guru is my own body. Because he says this body of, and this goes over 2 stanzas, he says, this body of ours, and here he says, is a great teacher, because when everything is going fine with your body, you don't appreciate it. But when things starts going down with your body, then you realize that, oh my God, I can't now walk. If I cannot walk, I cannot, how do I go visit temples, right? If you cannot talk properly, like, okay, how do I say all these slokams? If I cannot see, just imagine, right? How do I go do all this? So he says, we don't appreciate the value of our body to act as a boat to get us to liberation. But the moment the body starts degrading, we start realizing how much I wasted my body. He says, I've come to that realization right now, because right now he's still suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, sitting there, unable to do it, unable to do a lot of things, right? He says, so the body is our own body, is our 25th guru of saying how we should not put it to waste. And when we are able to and capable, leverage it to achieve liberation more. त्वय्येव त्वत्कृतं त्वं, क्षपयसि जगदित्यूर्णनाभात्. So if you want to break it, it's जगदित्यूर्णनाभात् प्रतीयां, त्वच्चिन्ता त्वत्स्वरूपं कुरुत इति, दृढं शिक्षये पेशकारात्. त्वय्येव त्वत्कृतं त्वं क्षपयसि जगदित्यूर्णनाभात् प्रतीयां, त्वच्चिन्ता त्वत्स्वरूपं कुरुत इति, दृढं शिक्षये पेशकारात्.
त्वय्येव त्वत्कृतं त्वं क्षपयसि जगदित्यूर्णनाभात् प्रतीयां, त्वच्चिन्ता त्वच्चिन्ता त्वत्स्वरूपं कुरुत इति, दृढं शिक्षये पेशकारात्.
त्वय्येव त्वत्कृतं त्वं क्षपयसि जगदित्यूर्णनाभात् प्रतीयां, त्वच्चिन्ता त्वत्स्वरूपं कुरुत इति, दृढं शिक्षये पेशकारात्.
बिभस्मात्मा च देहो, भवति गुरुवरो यो विवेकं विरक्तिं, धत्ते संचिन्त्यमानो, मम तु बहु रुजा पीडितोऽयं विशेषात्. Piditoyam, through all the diseases I've got, I've come to the realization. Vidbhasmatma cha deho bhavati guruvaro yo vivekam viraktim, dhatte sancintyamano, mama tu bahuruja piditoyam visheshat.
विड्भस्मात्मा च देहो भवति गुरुवरो यो विवेकं विरक्तिं, धत्ते संचिन्त्यमानो, मम तु बहुरुजा पीडितोऽयं विशेषात्.
विड्भस्मात्मा च देहो भवति गुरुवरो यो विवेकं विरक्तिं, तत्ते संचिन्त्यमानो, मम तु बहुरुषा पीडितोऽयं विशेषात्.
The last word, P pass sound, piditoyam visheshat.
பீடின்னு சொல்லிட்டேன்.
Ba potella. Okay, we'll do 9. I don't think we'll be able to do 9 and 10 today. So, hi me deha moham tyaja pavana puradisha yat prema hetoho, gehe vitte kalatra dishu cha vibashitaha, tvatpadam vismaranti, soyam vanneshu nova paramiha paratah, sampratan chakshikarnattvajjhvadhya vikarshanthyavashamata itah, kopina tvatpadhabje. He starts by telling, like we said, that everything that we like eventually has to come to us. Otherwise, we won't like anything, and you can pick anything you want. It'll always trace back to us. And even for us, when we say, many of us at least, don't identify ourselves as the soul inside. We identify ourselves as the body, right? Which means that we naturally go looking for things which makes our body and our senses and our mind happy. if something doesn't make our mind and senses and body happy, we never do those things, right? So he says, and what happens because of that is each one is going to pull us in a different direction, right? Our eyes are going to say, I like to see this, I want to go visit these places. My ears are going to say, I want to listen to something and do it. My nose is going to give different things. So each of my body senses and body parts are pulling us all in different directions. But he says, no body part is telling, I want to go towards Bhagavan, right? Unless you consciously decide through your mind that I want to do it. By default, nothing does, right? You walk around, your nose automatically picks up a good smell and says, okay, today is what like it can pick it up, right? So, but your eyes can pick up, but it says no part of your body or your mind picks up that I need to focus towards Bhagavan. So he says, the first step of Guru Arapa, the prayer is, he may deha moham. Please give me the ability to not get attached to my body and my senses. Because the more I get attached to it, I'm going to get pulled in different directions. And you please bless me so I can get my mind focused towards attaining that. Because, like you said, I've gotten this human birth after so much struggle, and I don't want to put this human birth to waste. And all of this is possible with Tvat Padabje. By devotion to your feet, I will get that by getting the right focus. Hi me deha moham tyaja pavana puradhisha yat prema hetoho. So put a visarga at the end of that line. That whole line is together. The next line, if you have a ir on top of that gehe, that goes away. Gehe vitte kalatradishu cha vivashitaha. That is goes away. Visarga comma vivashitaha. Tvatpadam vismaranti. Hi me deha moham tyaja pavana puradhisha yat prema hetoho gehe vitte kalatra dishu cha vivashitaha tvatpadam vismaranti.
ही मे देहमोहं त्यज पवनपुराधीश यत्प्रेम हेतोः गेहे वित्ते कलत्रादिषु च विवसिताः त्वत्पदं विस्मरन्ति.
ही मे देहमोहं त्यज पवनपुराधीश यत्प्रेम हेतोः गेहे वित्ते कलत्रादिषु च विवशिताः त्वत्पदं विस्मरन्ति.
Soyam vannesh shunova paramiha parataha, comma, sampratan in sound, sampratan chakshi karna, put a plus, twag jihvadhya vikarshant yava shamata itaha. So you cannot break those words. So twag jihvadhya vikarshant yava shamata itaha, and then a comma. So third line after parataha, comma, then the whole thing is together. Kopina tvat padhabje. Sohyam vanneshu nova paramiha parataha sampratan chakshi karna tvajjeh vadhya vikarshantya itaha kopina tvat padhabje.
सोऽयं वह्नेषु नो वा परमिह परतः साम्प्रतं चाक्षिकर्णत्वग्जिह्वाद्या विकर्षं त्यवशमत इतः कोऽपि न त्वत्पदाब्जे.
सोऽयं वह्नेषु नो वा परमिह परतः साम्प्रदञ्चाक्षिकर्णत्वग्जिह्वाद्या विकर्षन्
The vikarshant varakum you can go. Vikarshant.
Oh, okay. Tapam. Okay. Vikarshantyavashamata idaha gopinatvat padabje.
Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Sorry, we had to rush today, but it makes sense to spend time on the menu. You can always practice later on the stanzas. So सान्ध्रानन्दावबोधात्मकमनुपमितं कालदेशावधिभ्यां निर्मुक्तं नित्यमुक्तं निगमशतसहस्रेण निर्भास्यमानम् अस्पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानां कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Rajesh.
Thank
ji.
you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Bye,
Rajesh.
everyone. Bye. Bye.